Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, Read and Reread. I'm Angelia, and I just started this channel a few days ago, so thank you to everyone who's already checked it out and subscribed or liked the videos. And if you find that you do enjoy today's content, please give me a like, help me out, and I'll check out your channel as well if you have one. Today I'm going to do my April reading wrap-up, and it's a teeny bit early. It might not end up being early by the time I edit and post this, but there's a few days left in April, and I feel like I'm on my last book of April. I might squeeze in something else, so I'll probably just begin one that I don't really finish until May. So I'm going to wrap it up, and I need some content because I just started this channel, and I only have one video so far, so it's time to add on. So in no particular order, I'm going to talk a little bit about the books that I read in the month of April, and I have, well, there is one order. I'm going to save my favorite one for last. In the collection of things that I read, there is one dud and one favorite, and then most of the others in between I enjoyed and liked to different extents. So I'll just give you my comments. It will be spoiler free. I'll let you know in the future if I'm going to get more in depth and give something away about a book. Otherwise, it's spoiler free. Maybe you will hear about a book in here that you would like to try, or if you have read the book yourself, let me know what you thought of it. Did you agree or disagree with my take on that book? Okay. So let's see. First of all, in no particular order until we get to the end, we have Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. I got this at the library. I've been hearing about it. I've seen it discussed on a few channels and in some articles about it being one of the best books so far of the year, and I thought it was really good. This one, it's what I call, it kind of comes under, it's contemporary fiction, realistic fiction, sort of a family saga kind of story. And what happens in this story is that upon the death of Eleanor Bennett, this is a lady who has two grown children, Benny and Byron, that are in their late 30s to mid 40s, and Benny, the woman, is a little bit estranged from the family. I'm not going to give it away about why, but just something went wrong at Thanksgiving. But so she hasn't been in a lot of contact with her family for a little while. And when Eleanor dies, she leaves instructions through her lawyer that Byron and Benny need to come and hear a recording that she has made where she has some things to tell them, and then she wants them to get together and eat this black cake that she has saved in the freezer. Now, the black cake is really important in the story, and it's a Caribbean kind of fruit cake, and it's described how it is made and how it is different from other things. And the culture, the Caribbean culture and Caribbean American culture is important in the book. There are a lot of elements that have to do with culture and race, but really it's about Eleanor's story going all the way back to when she was a kid on an unnamed Caribbean island that sounds a lot like Jamaica, which the author has Jamaican heritage. And she had a lot of stuff going on that her kids did not know about. So they gradually, hearing the tape and hearing Eleanor's story, and her story is, I don't want to give it away, but it's a good story. And it kind of helps them put things into perspective about her and each other and themselves. And it's one of those kind of things where they're sitting and listening to this tape in the present day, but the story's going back through a whole bunch of decades. And so it was really good. So if you like those kind of stories, and it's not one of those ones where, oh, she had a secret nobody knew, and then you finally hear what it is and you're like, really? Like, it's actually very compelling. So Black Cake was really good. I liked it a lot. All right, then we have a kind of okay-ish one, Bitter Orange by Claire Fuller, and this was in a library book sale, so I got it for $1. And in this book, this is one of those ones where it gets described as atmospheric because they can't figure out exactly how to categorize it. And I feel like with this book, it was probably hard to market because there is a mystery, but it's not really like a detective or thriller kind of thing. And it's not a horror. And the way it's described in the flyleaf is not completely accurate either. But it is 1969. There's a woman named Frances who's in her late 30s, and she's lived a pretty sheltered life because she has spent a really long time caring for a very controlling mother who had a long, extended, bedridden kind of illness. So her mother has finally died, and Frances takes a job at this kind of decaying British estate that's been bought by an American who hasn't really been there in person. And she is hired. He saw some of her work in a magazine, and he hires her to do some architectural assessment and drawings. And that's kind of what she does. She didn't really have a full-time job because she was caring for her mother, but she did some academic kind of architectural drawing kind of things that she would send to magazines. So she gets a job to go stay at this house and look at a bridge and some structures and sketch them and things like that. And he says, well, there's also going to be, these other people are going to be there working too. So there's a couple there, Peter and Kara, and this is one of those stories where you have, I feel like I've read this story a number of times, where somebody who's kind of naive comes in and becomes very entranced with someone who is really alluring and worldly, but really off kilter and imbalanced and maybe, mentally ill. So she gets wrapped up with Peter and Kara is just kind of wheels off and keeps having these kind of odd breakdowns and things throughout the book. And she's got some backstory and history that she keeps telling, but it comes out different every time she tells it, and it takes forever to get to what really happened. And Frances has a few things of her own. So it builds up. If you were looking for a thriller, you keep being like, well, when's something going to happen? And something eventually does happen, but like all the way right at the end. So it is kind of slow and moody, and it was okay. I got my dollar's worth. It's not a must read, but I liked it all right. All right, let me see. I have notes. Let me see if I said what I meant to say. I guess I did. I think that also when things are described as atmospheric, they use that like as a catch-all. Did I already say this? When they don't really know what to do with it. It was atmospheric. All right, then we had a book that I already returned to the library, called Hello Transcriber. And Hello Transcriber is the dud of the month. It was a letdown, I gotta tell you. It wasn't a DNF. I did read the whole thing, but I kind of wish I hadn't. It looked really good. And it was random, like I didn't go in with it on my list. I just saw it in the new section and I thought it looked good. But it was about a woman named Hazel who gets a job as a police transcriber where she can type really, really fast. So she gets this job and she types up the reports of, what the police officers, so some of it's kind of boring stuff, but a murder case comes up like almost right away that's really awful, and this child was found with an overdose, and they think there's this person calling themselves the Candyman who's distributing drugs to kids, and this very hot detective is on the case. Now Hazel has a really crappy husband, and all through the book they keep describing the things that he says and does that are obviously abusive, like emotionally abusive, and she never quite seems to categorize it like that herself until maybe later in the book she finally kind of catches on, but nobody ever says anything to like how weird her husband is. But she becomes instantly alert to this detective, and unrealistically, I mean, something starts up with them like immediately. Like somebody who was so hemmed in by their husband and his weird rules is like instantly ready to leap on board with Nick the detective. So I didn't find that to be very realistic, and the mystery itself was okay, but it kind of turned, like I was looking for a good thriller, and instead it was more about her attraction to the detective, and will that ever coalesce into something? And I don't know, it was like I got tricked into a romance novel, but then it wasn't even good. It was like kind of sordid and creepy. So that was the dead of the month. All right. Then I also read a book that I already took back to the library, but I'm going to try to insert a picture here somewhere. 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff. And I've read it before, but I read it again for an online book discussion group in the, I think it's called I don't know what it's called. It's a classics Facebook group for classics. And anyway, 84 Charing Cross Road is an epistolary novel, and I love when I get a chance to throw that word in. It's like my favorite word. So it's written in the letters format, and it is actually a memoir. It's not a fiction book, and it is the letters that went between Helene Hanff and this British bookstore for about 20 years, starting right after World War II, and I think going up into the late 60s. And she was a collector of rare books, classics of different sorts, and I guess this was a time when it wasn't so easy to find them, even though she lived in New York City. But this lady barely ever leaves her apartment. Like the whole first 10 years of the correspondence, they're always inviting her to come and tell her she can stay with this person and that, and she's always like, oh yeah, I'm going to save up for this trip, but she doesn't ever go. And in fact, she'll say things like, I know I could get a copy of this at such and such shop, but then I'd have to leave my apartment. And I'm like, you live in Manhattan and you don't want to go do anything? So anyway, she was a TV writer, and she wrote for the Ellery Queen TV show in the 1950s, and then I think she wrote for some others. And I have heard there's a sequel in which she really does finally go on a trip to London and visits the people that are still alive that work at this bookstore. But during the course of this book, it's just the correspondence. So it's pretty charming. It's kind of, there's not a lot to it, but it's kind of a fun read. And another one that I don't have with me anymore is Early Morning Riser by Early Morning Riser by the author's last name is Heiny. I know it's kind of funny. Heiny. And Early Morning Riser reminded me a lot of Ann Tyler. It was kind of that family, quirky group of people who sort of assimilate into a family. And it's about a woman named Jane who is a elementary school teacher in a small town, and she meets this guy Duncan. They hit it off, start dating, and then everyone says, oh, you're dating Duncan, huh? It turns out he has dated like everybody, and nobody has anything really bad to say about him, except that he's not ever serious and nothing ever progresses. So he does have an ex-wife, and she has a big part in the story too. But it's just about kind of the ups and downs with Jane and Duncan, and then some other friends that they make, and a guy named Jimmy, who's very charming in the story. There's a couple of interesting characters that are sort of neuroatypical that are interesting, and it was funny. I liked it. It's not going to become ingrained in my soul or anything, but it was a good story. If you like kind of like the Ann Tyler vibe of books, you probably would like it. All right, and let's see. We're coming in, there's two more things to talk about. My second to last thing is actually a trilogy of books, and I'm going to show you. This is a young adult trilogy written in the late 60s. And the first book is The White Mountains. The second book is The City of Golden Lead, which, you got to just look at this. This is like my favorite all-time book cover. And then this one, the final book in the series, is The Pool of Fire. John Christopher was a pen name for a British writer, and I found out that he wrote actually about 50 books under an assortment of pseudonyms. And this particular trilogy is a reread for me, and I found these books in my school library when I was still in elementary school back in the 70s, and I loved these. I read them over and over. I never owned them. I always would check them out and read them, and they really intrigued me. And then I have tried and failed for decades to sell this series to other people, and it does have fans. In fact, it was made into a TV show in Great Britain in the 80s, and there's a whole big fandom around that, and I have not watched it yet. But it does have its fans. I'm going to do a whole separate video where I go in depth with spoilers and discuss this series, and also another book by the author that I'm waiting for from Amazon that was written for adult audience. That's like a science fiction book that's supposed to be really good. But in this series, if you go back to the first book, in this series, in the first book, The White Mountains, it takes place in the future, but it looks like the past. You don't know for a second when you start to read it that you're in the future, because it is an agrarian society in the British countryside in a little town, and people have all those, kind of jobs like a blacksmith and somebody works at the mill and that kind of stuff. And then you find out that everybody is a pretty peaceful existence, but when a person is around 13 or 14, they get capped. And what that means is that, hold on, I'm having a technical issue there. What that means is that it sounds really, really weird, but if you look on the picture here, see these things back here, they're called tripods, and there's this great big tall, like 15-foot high thing that walks across the land, and they're in control. And when you reach that certain age, it takes you up into the capsule, and when you come out, you've got like this metal thing on your head. It's sort of embedded. And after that, it doesn't really like erase your personality or anything, but there is a mind control. The people are just kind of peaceful. They don't engage in wars and conflicts. They're not real ambitious to go outside their village and things like that. So we don't find out for a long time what they are or how this happened or how it came to be. But there is a boy named Will, and to cut a long story short, he finds out that there's an underground movement of people that are resisting the tripods, and they are adults who are not capped. And I'm not going to get in. You have to watch the video about this if you want to know more, because I don't want to bore everybody to death. But he makes a run for it, and it begins the trilogy about the escape from the tripods and the war against them. So, yes, there is more to come, and in that video I'll explain my sad saga of all the times I've tried to get other people to read these books and that they didn't appreciate them like they should. All right, we're getting down to the final selection. The final book. I know this video ended up being a little bit long, but drum roll. The book of the month is Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. Now, if you have not read The Glass Hotel and Station 11, go turn this off right now and go get those books and start reading, because you're missing out. And this is her newest book. I had to get it. I had to have it on order so that it arrived immediately as soon as it came out, because I love this author. And this book did not disappoint. The only thing that disappointed me was that it's kind of thin and it ended too fast. And what I will tell you is that there are some recurring characters from The Glass Hotel. You don't have to have read it to appreciate this book, but if you have read it, you'll appreciate it more and be happy to see these characters appear again. But read carefully, because their storyline is not exactly like it happened in that book. And the thing that I love so much about this book is that it involves time travel and I am a sucker for a time travel story. I don't want to give anything away, and it's okay to read. It's okay to read The Flyleaf. I have a real pet peeve about people that give too much away in there. It's okay to read it. There are multiple time periods, and there's someone who can move between them, and everything ends up intricately coming together. If you liked her other books, I think you will love it. If you liked Cloud Cuckoo Land, I think you'll love it. If you like other books that kind of play with your mind with the movement of time, like The Time Traveler's Wife, I think that you also will like it. So that was my favorite book of the month. So let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, if you liked any of these books also, or you didn't like them, or you think I should have read something else, let me know. I'll be doing a video soon with some TBRs for May and other content yet to come. So thank you for sticking around through this longish video, and I will see you again soon. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw today. Bye.